Alright, listen up right now, because within the last 3 hours the entire hip-hop world just cracked open like an egg on hot pavement. A brutal, unfiltered medical dossier has spilled onto the internet, and the untouchable, gold-plated, self-crowned biggest boss illusion of Rick Ross is officially collapsing in real time. 50 Cent has just pulled the safety pin off the loudest social media grenade of the decade, and what he detonated is not about fake chains, not about tax liens, not about ghostwriters, and not about some old kingpin fantasy. This one is about skin. Flesh. Deep, ugly, pitted craters carved into the face and neck of a man who spent nearly 20 years selling the whole planet a fantasy of invincible wealth. And right now, according to insiders leaking straight out of the Promised Land estate, the self-crowned biggest boss is trapped inside his own 300-acre Georgia mansion, screaming into a phone, watching his empire evaporate frame by frame while every camera in America aims itself at his front gate. Here's the thing, this is not a normal rap beef. This is not a diss track. This is not a mixtape shot. This is a live surgical execution being broadcast in high definition, and Curtis 50 Cent Jackson is the surgeon holding the scalpel. Watch this closely, because what you are about to hear is going to permanently rewrite how the culture remembers the man behind Maybach music. And more importantly, it is going to change how every single artist in hip-hop protects their own private information from this moment forward. To understand the sheer, earth-shattering size of what just landed, you have to rewind the tape all the way back. Because this war between 50 Cent and Rick Ross did not start last night. It has been simmering, boiling, poisoning both men for nearly 2 decades. And every single high-level executive inside the music business has been quietly waiting for the moment one of them finally pushed the button that could not be unpushed. That moment happened at 3:14 in the morning yesterday. And the industry has not stopped shaking since. Now hold on, because we have to talk about how this whole feud even got born, or none of what follows makes sense. Rewind to 2008. The BET Hip Hop Awards. 50 Cent was standing at the absolute peak of his global G-Unit dominance, moving records like water, terrifying every executive in the building, running a distribution machine that turned diss tracks into diamond plaques. Rick Ross was rising fast on the back of hyper-aggressive street anthems, and by every account, 50 Cent walked past him with a dismissive glance that Rick Ross took as personal disrespect. That look, that one moment of silence, set fire to something that has never been put out. Within weeks Rick Ross fired first, releasing bars that mocked the G-Unit financial machine and tried to challenge 50 Cent's credibility in the street. What Ross did not know is that his rival does not respond with music. 50 Cent responds with paperwork. And paperwork is what turned this from a beef into a career-ending campaign. And that is when the first atomic bomb dropped. 50 Cent hired a private investigative team, dug deep into the sealed archives of the state of Florida, and pulled out documentation that shook the culture to its foundation. Employment records. Institutional badges. Photographs pulled from state government archives. The man who had built a multi-million-dollar musical empire on the pure myth of being a Miami kingpin was suddenly exposed as a former corrections officer at a state facility. Officer Ricky was born in that instant, and in any other era, that receipt should have permanently ended the career of William Leonard Roberts II. Any other rapper would have folded, changed their name, disappeared to Miami and never touched a microphone again. But Rick Ross did something no analyst predicted. He refused to shrink. He refused to fold. Instead of hiding from the truth, he doubled down on the illusion. He bought Evander Holyfield's massive 109-room mega mansion, named it the Promised Land, and flooded every timeline with private jets, gold chains, and exotic cars until the presentation drowned out the paperwork. Ross forced the world to believe the illusion over the receipts. And for a long, uncomfortable stretch of years, it actually worked. Rick Ross outflexed the truth into silence. But here's the part almost nobody talks about. 50 Cent never stopped watching. Not for one day. Not for 1 hour. Because 50 Cent is not just a rapper anymore. He is a demolitions expert who understands that in hip-hop, physical presentation is not a costume. It is the actual currency. And 50 Cent knew that Rick Ross's obsession with looking untouchable was the exact crack in the armor he had been waiting for. Every private jet post. Every diamond chain photo. Every muscle flex mirror selfie. 50 Cent quietly filed all of it, waiting for the perfect moment to bring the whole cathedral down. Even when the Queen's mogul was hit with that massive $5 million civil verdict back in 2015 over the sex tape scandal, he did not stop watching. He filed for bankruptcy protection, used the corporate legal system as a tactical shield, then quietly rebuilt himself into a television and film mogul completely independent of the rap music market. He stopped needing rap. But he never stopped needing to end his southern rival. Which brings us straight back to the horror movie unfolding right now. Because what leaked yesterday is not just embarrassing. It is the kind of exposure a career does not walk away from. And it is the kind of exposure that makes every executive in the industry rethink how much of their own private life is one hacked server away from a public autopsy. Alright, this is where it gets sick. And I need you to sit down for the details, because insiders inside the Promised Land estate say Rick Ross has been living behind blackout curtains for weeks. No dinners. No meetings. No public appearances. His team told sponsors he was in creative isolation working on some big new multimedia project. But the actual truth is stomach-turning. His chest, his neck, and the underside of his jaw have been ravaged by what one clinical note called an aggressive, deeply inflammatory skin condition that has left crater-like pits, weeping lesions, and hardened tissue across the exact places he used to flex heavy gold. And nobody outside the mansion had seen it. Until yesterday. Because yesterday morning, a private, high-end dermatology clinic in Atlanta had its patient portal compromised. Within minutes, ultra-high-definition close-up photographs surfaced on a private channel connected to 50 Cent's media network. What those photographs showed was not a small breakout. It was a full-scale dermatological catastrophe. Deep pitted scars. Raw open sores. Hardened, purplish tissue running in stripes across the neck. And here is the sick irony. The exact heavy gold Cuban links he wore to sell the illusion of untouchable wealth had been trapping bacteria, sweat, and skin oil against his neck for years. The chains that were supposed to prove he was a boss were slowly eating him alive. The very jewelry that built the brand was quietly destroying the man wearing it. Hold on, because 50 Cent did not just quietly repost the photo. Less than 2 hours after the leak surfaced, the G-Unit mogul uploaded the unredacted close-up to his own main feed, timed perfectly for maximum morning traffic, with a caption that made the whole industry go silent. He wrote, "And I'm telling you straight up, this is close to verbatim, look at this. The biggest boss is literally rotting from the inside out. Ricky, you tell the kids to get rich forever, but your own body is trying to evict your face. Can't wear the fake chains no more because your skin is rejecting the cheap brass. The presentation is dead, Officer Ricky. The mold is winning." Which means Curtis Jackson did not just leak a photo. He turned a private medical file into a comedy special, live-streamed in front of the world, in real time. And that is when the real chaos started spreading. Because at 4:30 in the morning, screenshots leaked from an encrypted WhatsApp group labeled MMG Executive Emergency, showing Rick Ross going completely nuclear inside his own mansion. He was screaming in all capitals, demanding to know which staff member leaked the medical records, threatening to fire his entire security detail on the spot, ordering his lawyers to shut down every server hosting the photos, and warning that if his liquor and lifestyle sponsors froze his distribution deals, heads would roll and contracts would burn. His chief legal counsel replied with the sentence that reportedly broke him, that a cease and desist cannot pull down a photo already legally shielded under a rival corporate umbrella. Ross went completely off the rails. According to 2 independent sources, he threw a phone hard enough to embed it into a wall inside his private study. But watch this closely, because this is where the story flips from scandal into pure psychological thriller. When investigative journalists and independent dermatology consultants started analyzing the leaked clinical notes, they found something buried inside the file that turned this from an embarrassment into a nightmare. This skin condition was not natural. This was not eczema. This was not stress acne. This was not chain rash. 3 months ago, the rapper had allegedly signed off on an illegal, unapproved, experimental cosmetic procedure, a black market injectable filler designed to tighten and lift the skin around his neck and lower jaw before his upcoming world tour. He wanted to look boss. He wanted to look 10 years younger. He paid off the record for a chemical that had never been cleared by any regulatory body on Earth. And that chemical migrated inside his tissue, triggered a catastrophic allergic response, and started actively eating the healthy skin off his own neck from the inside out. Which means the Queen's mogul did not just expose a rash. He accidentally exposed the fact that his rival had been secretly rebuilding his own face on the black market, and the surgery melted him. Ross traded his health for a fake glow, and the bill came due in front of the entire planet, on a Tuesday, at 3 in the morning. Now hold on, because at exactly 1:15 in the afternoon yesterday, Curtis Jackson went live. And he was not sitting in a studio. He was not in the back of a luxury SUV. He was sitting inside the private conference room of an elite medical fraud investigation firm, holding a thick folder of notarized acquisition papers, pouring himself a glass of expensive cognac, laughing straight into the camera lens. Over 2 million people watched live as the G-Unit mogul revealed the second grenade. His parent company had already, quietly, executed a full corporate buyout of the exact offshore laboratory in South America that had manufactured the black market filler used on Rick Ross. Which means he does not just have leaked photos. He owns the chemical formula. He owns the shipping logs. He owns every server, every invoice, every packing slip that ever crossed that laboratory's desk. And Curtis Jackson announced on that live stream that his legal team had already forwarded every single forensic docket to the Food and Drug Administration and to the Georgia State Medical Board, opening a 24-hour countdown on the licenses of every private physician who ever touched the rapper's neck. That entire private medical team is now about to lose the right to practice medicine anywhere in the United States. This is no longer a rap beef. This is a federal criminal referral. And once that referral is filed, no lawyer on earth can undo it. The internet detonated within minutes. The hashtag Mango Boss went full nuclear inside 3 hours. 3 million posts. Split screens comparing the old red carpet glow to the pitted, cratered close-ups. One verified insider tweet with over 400,000 likes said it flat: you cannot call yourself the biggest boss when your worst enemy owns the receipt for the chemicals that dissolved your neck. Another simply said Rick Ross is finished, and left it there. Meek Mill tried to jump in and defend the empire, tweeting that this was corporate propaganda designed to tear down a strong black billionaire, that MMG was forever, that people needed to stop believing manufactured medical photos. 50 Cent replied within 60 seconds, threatening to leak Meek Mill's own private cosmetic procedure invoices. Meek Mill scrubbed the entire post inside a minute. Silence. Even Drake, who has history with both sides, dropped a single laughing crying emoji on a rap blog and then went completely quiet for the rest of the day. That is what fear looks like inside a locker room this loud. And then, right when the internet thought it had already peaked, a third leak dropped. A blurry photograph surfaced showing an official medical emergency transport vehicle parked outside the iron gates of the Promised Land estate. Hazmat-suited technicians were unloading heavy silver medical containment cases. And the return address stamped on those cases did not belong to any Atlanta hospital. The return address belonged to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. The Infectious Disease Division. Which means investigators were no longer just looking at one face. They were looking at whether the black market chemical had triggered a contagious drug-resistant superbug inside the mansion. Federal authorities were reportedly seconds away from asking whether the Promised Land itself needed to be quarantined. And every neighbor within a mile of that estate suddenly stopped answering their phones. Here's the thing, the digital shockwave has not slowed for a single second. Every major platform is on fire. TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, the comment sections have collapsed into two enemy trenches. On one side, the G-Unit army is running a victory parade, flooding every archive photo of Ross with biohazard emojis, syringe emojis, green sick face emojis. One viral post reads that the Queen's mogul did not defeat his rival in a rap battle, he executed a biological takeover of a human body. Another one says if your face is turning into a high school chemistry experiment, you are not a boss, you are a warning label. Another top comment thread claims Ross has been quietly warehousing custom bandanas for months to cover his neck at public appearances, and now the whole world knows why. And then on the opposite side, the MMG loyalists are firing back with deepfake conspiracy theories, screaming that the whole leak was engineered by a jealous rival's tech team, that the photos are AI, that the chemical is fake, that this is a targeted corporate hit designed to shatter independent black wealth in the culture. Mainstream media pounced immediately. Every entertainment news network yanked its scheduled programming and went into rolling coverage. Morning radio shows lost their minds and burned 3 hours of airtime screaming over whether Maybach Music Group survives the week. And every rap star who is not directly under the MMG payroll has gone into deep silence. Nobody wants to catch receipt shrapnel from 50 Cent's next post. Nobody. Every streaming platform is reporting record traffic spikes as fans refresh live updates, waiting to see if the biggest boss will finally emerge from the estate, or if the iron gates stay locked forever. And every insurance policy tied to his tour is reportedly now on hold, pending a physical examination he is refusing to sit for. But hold on, because it gets deeper. Way deeper. At exactly 2:15 this morning, a decentralized hacker collective operating on the dark web dropped a classified audio file. The file was titled MMG Medical Strategy 06. Inside that file is a phone call between Rick Ross and his lead criminal defense attorney, recorded moments after the CDC transport vehicle arrived at the promised land. And this audio changes everything. Because the man on that call is not crying. He is not panicking. He is not begging. Rick Ross is laughing. A slow, raspy, terrifying laugh. And Ross says to his lawyer, let him take the pictures. Let him post the invoices. The idiot just walked his entire G-Unit empire straight into a federal buzzsaw. Which means the story you have been watching for the past 24 hours may not be the story that actually happened. According to the leaked audio, the whole thing, the mysterious skin condition, the leaked clinical photos, the dermatology breach, the offshore lab, all of it, was allegedly a lethal reverse corporate trap. Rick Ross's financial advisors had discovered months ago that the offshore laboratory in South America was already under a sealed federal criminal investigation by the Department of Justice for international chemical smuggling, tax evasion, and distribution of counterfeit cosmetic agents. That laboratory was toxic. That laboratory was radioactive. That laboratory was about to be seized by the United States government. And the MMG boss allegedly staged a fake skin condition, using a harmless temporary irritant to mimic the appearance of an aggressive infection under high-definition lighting, and left a paper trail so clean and so obvious that his enemy's private investigators would follow it straight into the trap. And they did. The moment Curtis Jackson's parent company, Prestige Sky Holdings, purchased that South American laboratory, he legally inherited every single active federal liability attached to it. Every smuggling charge. Every tax violation. Every counterfeit chemical distribution count. All of it transferred directly onto his balance sheet the moment the ink dried on the acquisition. Which means the federal presence at those Georgia gates was not a quarantine. It was a scheduled federal deposition. Ross was voluntarily handing over records as the cooperating witness. And the CDC containment cases were reportedly the sealed physical evidence being routed toward. This is the twist that flatlined every attorney in the country, the corporate accounts of the new owner. Curtis Jackson himself. Which means the G-Unit boss did not buy a weapon. He bought a bomb, and the trigger was already sitting inside the government's hand the whole time. Rick Ross did not lose. Rick Ross allegedly baited 50 Cent into buying his own federal indictment with a smile and a glass of cognac on the desk. The predator became the prey the second the paperwork cleared. Unconfirmed reports right now claim unmarked federal vehicles have been spotted moving toward corporate headquarters in Manhattan. Local Georgia authorities have blocked the main entries to the promised land to control the swarming media. And every single major label executive in the country is on a private group call trying to figure out what happens next. Because the answer to that question determines whether MMG survives, whether G-Unit survives, and whether one of the two loudest men in hip-hop wakes up tomorrow morning in a federal holding cell instead of a mansion. Sources close to the Department of Justice say a decision is being made in the next few hours about whether formal charges will be filed against Prestige Sky Holdings by end of business today. And there is one more layer nobody is talking about. If the parent company is formally indicted, the ripple effect hits every business under the Queen's Mogul's corporate umbrella. The premium spirit brand. The television production pipeline. The streaming deals. The documentary distribution arm. Every single asset 50 Cent spent the last decade building outside of rap is now legally attached to a black market cosmetic laboratory in South America. Which means Rick Ross may not just be trying to survive this. He may be trying to erase the entire empire that was built to replace rap. This was never a beef. This was a hostile takeover disguised as a scandal disguised as a beef. And on the flip side, if that laughing audio turns out to be a fake, if the dark web leak was another layer of a G-Unit counter-operation designed to make Rick Ross look guilty of orchestrating the whole thing, then the story flips again, and Rick Ross is not the mastermind. He is the fall guy. And 50 Cent walks away as the last man standing in a war that has already burned through every alliance in hip-hop. That is the version some insiders are quietly whispering right now. Because nothing about this story is settled. Nothing. So here is what I need from you. Drop your take in the comments below right now. Did Rick Ross just pull off the most surgical reverse trap in the history of the music business, or is 50 Cent about to fire back with a counter-strike that ends Maybach music forever? Do you believe the laughing audio is real, or do you think 50 Cent leaked it on purpose to bait Rick Ross into a bigger corner? Smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on every notification bell you can find, because the second the first federal asset freeze or arrest warrant drops, we are going live with the full breakdown. Do not blink. Do not scroll away. The doomsday clock is inside the red zone, and the next 24 hours are going to permanently reshape the map of hip-hop. That's the update. I'll catch you on the next one.